Welcome back to Chapter 11. In this video, we're talking about the different ways to add CSS to a page. There are three methods to adding CSS to a page or a site. The first one is inline CSS. Next, we have embedded CSS and external CSS. The first type is inline CSS, probably the most common when it comes to new people learning CSS. The exact concept of inline CSS allows you to add the style attribute inside of a tag. The style value should equal some CSS rules. In this case, we set the color to red and the font size to 24 pixels. These are also the property and value declarations that we discussed in the previous video, but inside a tag. It is the opening tag for elements. The good thing is, this allows you to have very fine control over what styles are on a page applying to that specific element. For example, this produces a hello world example if we were to fill out the rest of the tag. We have the red text and the 24 pixel height. In this case, the font size is 24 pixels. There are some pros and cons to inline CSS. The pros are it allows you to easily identify which element will receive the styling, and you have fine control over the styling of the specific element. A few cons are it's very hard to maintain, especially when you're trying to update a 1,000+ page website and you have to go through each single page and update that specific rule. It's not a very good method to use, and it's prone to error, especially since you're doing a lot of copying and pasting, and eventually you'll copy and paste the same error. So not exactly a good thing to do. Next, you have embedded CSS. This goes inside the head section between two style tags. When you're creating embedded CSS, you want to have the element itself or the selector, as we talked about before, and then the property and values located beneath that. So right here we have a P tag being identified as the selector inside style tags in the head element of your page. Not the header element, but the head. Chances are when you're adding CSS, you're going to be adding embedded CSS right after the title tag. This way, the whole page can have the effect of the styling rules you're declaring. Embedded CSS is a little better than inline CSS, but there are pros and cons. Some of the pros are that it's more efficient than inline. By applying one style tag and having one selector, that means that every element on that page has the same styling as the other items. For example, every P tag on that page has the same styling than the other items such as the body tag, div tags, bold tags, or any other tags. So instead of having to select every single P tag, you can just declare this in the embedded CSS and a single rule can cover the whole page. However, there are a few cons. For one, it's not really efficient. Each page has its own rules. It does reduce the amount of updating needed to do when you're trying to update a 1,000+ page site, but you still have to go to every single page to update a very bloated method of styling, because the styles are duplicated on every single page. Additionally, this is also prone to error because there are a lot of editions and a lot of copies out there of a specific styling on each page. The last one is probably the most efficient and probably the easiest to work with, and that is external CSS. We are using a link tag instead of a style tag. The link tag replaces the style tag and references an external style sheet. In this case, we have the link and the hyperlink reference located inside the CSS folder and the CSS file, in this case main.css. We have the REL, or the relationship attribute, identified as a style sheet. This is our way of telling the browser exactly what we're trying to load so that it can load this external resource. The good thing is, one CSS file can control an entire site. However, you have to have the attributes for this link tag. They are required in order for you to load the CSS. Let's take a look at an external CSS. In this case, this file is called main.css. We have the body and the p selectors, and the items below that we'll get to in the next chapter. But basically, this one file controls all the elements of the body and the p tags on the whole site. We don't need to worry about updating every single page, because once we update this file, and every page points to this file, the same attributes, same properties, and same values will be passed to every single page. There are a few pros and cons to this, as always. A few pros are a single external file can contain all of the CSS rules. It is easy to manage, modify, and can update across the whole site. And because there's only one location of these CSS rules, therefore it is less prone to error. It's not perfect, but it is certainly less prone because you only have the rules being repeated once. The only con so far is that it does require an external file to be downloaded, which, once you're talking about a 1,000+ page site, is not really a bad thing, mainly because once a person visits your site and downloads the CSS file, that same CSS file that is technically copied on their computer can now be referenced for the local cached pages of that website. Therefore, the same file does not need to be downloaded multiple times. That's it for this section. In the next section, we'll talk about a little more styling text and a few of the properties and values that we cover. If you have any questions regarding this or anything in Chapter 11, please send me an email or hit me up on Twitter, and I'll get back to you with the best possible answer.